everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We have a full agenda today. We will first be talking about preparation for end of year in Sage 100. That will include talk about 1099 vendors and calendar year end, fiscal year end, some resources that are available to you as end users to close out your year in Sage 100. And for those who have the payroll module, preparing for and processing payroll year end in Sage 100, processing and filing your quarterly and year end forms and your W-2 and W-3 forms, closing your period end in payroll, tax table updates, post year end considerations, and the Affordable Care Act. And there will be a question and answer session at the end of this presentation. Preparation for calendar year end. You'll first want to verify your disaster recovery plan for Sage 100. This includes ensuring that you have a solid backup plan in place and that you are able to restore your Sage 100 system from that backup. Next, you'll want to be sure that you have the correct options chosen for your paperless office period end reports. And this can be done in the paperless office module under the setup menu in the period end report maintenance task. You'll want to create a copy of your live company before closing the year. That's done under the company maintenance task in Library Master. And finally, understand the differences between the calendar year end and the fiscal year end in Sage 100. Preparing for calendar year end. In order to be able to process your year-end tax forms in Sage 100, which include your 1099 forms and your payroll forms, an interim release download, aka IRD, must first be installed. In addition, you'll need to install the 2021 tax forms for the Atrix program. The IRD is available in and around the third week of December. Sage has published the date of December 23rd for this year. Before being able to install the IRD, you'll need to validate your Sage 100 version and the versions of any other third-party software that is integrated with Sage 100. Supported versions this year for your Sage 100 and payroll are 2021 Update 2, Update 0 if you're not printing 1099 forms, version 2020, Update 4 and higher, Update 2 and higher if not printing your 1099 forms, version 2019, Update 5 and higher, and this will be the end of life for the 2019 supported version and for any tax forms to be processed. If you have the payroll module, you will need to be on version 2.22.0 for your version 2021 Sage 100, and that will be released this month. And if you're on version 2020 or lower, you will need to be on a minimum of payroll version 2.21.3 and also have the PR 6032-T hotfix installed for the 941 form. If you need a product update for your Sage 100, if you need the IRD installed, and or if you need assistance with your year-end process, please give RKL support a call or email, support@rklesolutions.com. If you need to upgrade your Sage 100 from version 2018 or lower, please contact your RKL account manager. If you're not sure who that is, their names will be displayed at the end of this presentation. RKL will provide support for product updates, IRD installations, and or year-end assistance. It will be a minimum of 2 hours, and it will include, on an as-needed basis, a product update installation and data conversion, installation of the IRD, installation of the federal and tax reporting program on the workstation where the tax processing will occur, installation of the 2021 tax forms, and a follow-up call from an RKL consultant. as well as any other assistance that you may require, including a walkthrough of the 1099 and/or W-2 printing wizard. The additional time above 2 hours will be billed as time and materials. To determine your current version of Sage 100, if you are on version 2020 or lower and are using the classic view, which is the view that has been around for the past 20 years, go to your Help menu and then click About Sage 100. If you are using the newer Standard View desktop, go to the Help ribbon and choose Sage 100. To prepare for your 1099 processing, you'll want to go to Library Master, to the main menu, and to Company Maintenance, and confirm that your federal ID number and your state ID number, if applicable, are filled in. Atrix, which is the program that processes your 1099 forms, will electronically file your 1099 forms for a fee, or you can print them on your own. If you choose to print them, be sure that you have the 2021 1099 forms, which are now 3-part, and can be ordered from either of the 2 links shown on this PowerPoint, or by calling 800-617-3224. Next, confirm that you have the correct payment amounts for your vendors for the year 2021. This can be done by running the payment history report, which is on the Accounts Payable Reports menu, and then checking those amounts, and by correcting any amounts that are needed by going to Vendor Maintenance, to the Additional tab, and clicking 1099 History. In the 1099 Payment History screen, which is on the right, you can choose the form type and then change any amounts in any of the applicable boxes. You're now ready to process your 1099 forms. You'll go to Accounts Payable, to the Reports menu, and choose Form 1099 Tax Reporting. You'll be in a screen where you will choose the form type, and then if you choose to enter minimum year-to-date amounts, click the minimum YTD icon, and there, based on the form you've chosen, you will see boxes where you can enter minimum amounts. 1099s are processed through Atrix, which is a third-party product embedded in Sage 100. Once you've made your choices on the previous screens, you will be placed in the Atrix program. You will be prompted to download the 2021 tax forms. You can choose Automatic Update and follow the prompts, and if that doesn't work, you can choose the second option, Download Updates, and you will then see a screen with the Atrix website link. Once you click that, on the Atrix website, scroll down and choose Sage 100. Once the forms have been fully downloaded and installed, you will see a screen that says Update Complete, which you can close, and then the wizard will move on. You can test access to Atrix before actually processing your 1099 forms. In the next wizard screen, you'll have 3 choices. The first will be to test drive the 1099, 1096 wizard for just the first 25 recipients. Second choice is to test drive for all recipients. And third is to just go ahead and start processing your 1099, 1096 forms. The wizard will walk you through some screens where the year-end information will be pulled from Sage 100 into the Atrix program. You will then be prompted to validate each section: addresses, income tax IDs, etc. If you have chosen not to test drive, this information will be saved in Atrix. You can make changes to any of the fields, and they will be saved as long as you're not test driving. However, be aware that none of the changes will be saved back to Sage 100. Several more screens will appear, and then you will be presented with a screen where you will choose whether you want to electronically file your 1099 forms or whether you would like to print them. If you would like to print each instance of each type of form, be sure that the screen on the right-hand side reads total cost 0 before proceeding. Let's move on to preparing for fiscal year end in Sage 100. Fiscal year end includes closing each of your individual modules with the exception of payroll. It also involves some non-period end specific modules preparation. In your general ledger under your setup menu, you can set up your next fiscal year. This is not necessary if you are following the calendar year for your fiscal year. Sage 100 will automatically create the next fiscal year the first time you enter a transaction for it. If you are not on a calendar fiscal year, you'll go to Fiscal Year Maintenance and enter the ending date for each of your periods for 2022. Then in your General Ledger Options task under the Setup menu, you'll want to, in the Entry tab, determine whether your journal numbers will be reset at year end. The other options are period end or never reset. And in your Budget menu, determine whether you want to copy your actual figures to your default budget at year end. And if that box is checked, this will happen automatically during period end processing. In each of your modules, you'll want to verify the current fiscal period and year and how much history you're keeping before doing any closing of the modules. You can go to the Module Options task, and for each of the modules, this is located under that module's Setup menu, and it is the first task listed. For example, the Accounts Payable task would be Accounts Payable Options. Under the Main tab for most modules, but it may be a different tab for some modules, you will see the current fiscal year and period listed. And for Accounts Payable, you will also see the default 1099 calendar year. Under the History tab for each of these modules, you will see the amount of history that you're keeping for that module's data. The number of years listed includes the current fiscal year. You'll want to post all of your journals and registers, including your journal entries in General Ledger. For your purchase order module, under the period end menu, run your purchases clearing report and verify that all of the line items pertain to partially received and or partially invoiced purchase orders. In your inventory module, go to the period end menu and reconcile any negative tiers if you have LIFO, FIFO, lot, or serial number items, and run your trial balance reports. You want to also consult your accountant and perform any other additional reconciliations that may be required for you. Processing year end. The order of closing for the modules is listed here. You may not have all of these modules, so you can skip those that you don't. Some of these modules require very little, such as simply posting transactions. Other modules may require running of reports, but not have an actual period end task. Other modules do have period end tasks where you'll need to run the reports and close the periods. And yet other modules like purchase order, inventory, and accounts receivable will have some additional tasks that need to be performed prior to the period end processing. After you have closed the periods, all of your period and date specific information will change in Sage 100, and your period to date and year to date information will be updated. Your default current period will also change in any screens where the period is referenced. And finally, for processing year end, if you go to your help topics on your help ribbon or your help menu, if you're using the classic view, and you go to the index and type in checklists, you will see tasks for checklists for all of the modules for year end. Some tips about closing the periods. Make sure that you have the correct period end reports set up for each module, and this can be done by going to that module's period end menu and clicking the period end report selection task and reviewing the list of reports there, which can be modified. Keep in mind that period end will purge from Sage 100 any history that is older than the number of years in your options tasks. What will also happen is that in the purchase order module for the POs and in the accounts payable and accounts receivable modules for the invoices, any of those transactions that are being stored in the open file tables will be purged from those open tables and go into history. For example, if you're keeping 90 days of accounts payable invoices in the open file, which is an option in your options task, they will no longer be in the vendor inquiry invoices tab. They will only be available in the history tasks. General ledger controls what period can be posted to. For example, if general ledger has period 6 closed and period 6 is open for accounts payable, you cannot post any accounts payable transactions to period 6. Therefore, general ledger current period will need to be equal to or less than the periods in any of the other modules. Your general ledger period can be reopened. So if you run into the instance where general ledger is in a period higher than your modules, you can simply go to the general ledger options task under the setup menu and roll the period and or the year back. If you do this, keep in mind that you will not roll the period forward that way, since your period to date and year to date figures need to be recalculated. So to roll the period forward, you would reperform period end processing. In addition, you can restrict all users to post to the current and one future period. That is in company maintenance under the Preferences tab and is a checkbox, and it applies to all users. RKL recommends that you close your modules every period. General ledger, not necessarily so much, but keep it at least within the current year. And finally, ensure that you have a year-end backup before performing any of your year-end tasks. The next part of our presentation will apply to the payroll module, and will apply to quarter and year-end processing. If you have the payroll module in Sage 100, your payroll periods occur at the end of each quarter and then at the end of the calendar year. Therefore, period end processing is performed 4 times per year. If you're on Sage 100 version 2018 and higher, when you run period end processing in payroll, your quarter-to-date and year-to-date data is retained in the system for the number of years chosen in payroll options. This is not the same for version 2017 and lower. Version 2017 and lower period end processing actually purges the quarter and year-to-date data. So in the new payroll, the history is not purged, and the minimum number of years that you can store is 4 years, including the current year. So you can then enter payroll into future quarters and periods. However, we still strongly recommend that you make a backup company before running any period end processing. Your quarterly tax forms and W-2 forms are processed under your payroll, federal, and state tax reporting task. The IRD mentioned earlier must be installed prior to running your W-2s. The installation of the federal and state tax reporting program must be done on the workstation where the processing will occur. And you may be prompted to download the 2021 tax forms. You'll need to have an active Sage Business Care plan, an internet connection on that workstation, and be on a supported version of Sage 100. If you were required to enter a new product update, you will need new unlocking keys from Sage. RKL will take care of this if we are doing this for you. The interim release download will be available on Sage's website approximately December 23rd. It must be downloaded and installed before running your W-2 forms. And again, these are the supported versions of Sage 100 in order to be able to successfully install the IRD. Version 2019 is update 5 or higher, and this is the last year-end update for that version. Version 2020, update 2 or higher, with payroll version 2.21.3 or higher, and version 2021, update 0, with payroll version 2.22 or higher. Payroll quarter and year-end processing. The tasks that are performed are listed here. The first task is to process the last payroll for the year, to perform a full database backup, to then create a new company as a copy of the live company, print your quarterly reports, print or electronically file your 941 and state tax forms, install your interim release download, IRD, print your W-2 forms, perform period end processing, update your tax tables, manually update any federal and state unemployment rates in your tax tables, and then you're ready to process the first payroll of the new year. First, print your quarterly payroll and year-end reports. And on the screenshot here, you'll see the payroll reports menu, and all of the reports recommended are in the box, and they go from the quarterly tax report down to the workers' compensation report. We recommend that these reports be run before performing your period end processing. The next slide contains a detailed list of each of these reports, their contents, and their purposes. To run your quarterly tax forms, go to Payroll, Period End Processing, Federal and State Tax Reporting. There you'll have options to run your 941 and 941 Schedule B forms, as well as any state tax forms that apply. You're now ready to run your W-2 forms. Be sure that your IRD has been installed and that you are in the live company. If you need to reprint your W-2 forms later, they can be reprinted after you've processed the year end from your backup company. So be sure to create that backup company so you can refer back to it if needed for reprints. In the federal and state tax reporting task, you'll see that the following requirements apply: an active Sage Business Care plan, an internet connection on the workstation, and be on the supported version of Sage 100. In your first screen, you will choose Federal, and then your W-2, W-3 forms. Confirm that all of the company information on the lower left quadrant of this screenshot is correct, and then fill in the W-2 and Box 14 selections. You may, at this point, be prompted to install an update of the forms. You'll click Yes and then follow the instructions. If this is a reprint of your W-2 forms from your backup company, just change the company name and all the other information in the lower left quadrant to match that of your live company. Now you're ready to perform period end processing. You'll go to period end menu in Payroll, click period end processing, ensure that print period end reports is checked, and that the quarter is Q4 of 2021, and click Proceed. After period end processing has been run, you're now able to update your tax tables to be ready for your first payroll for next year. This can be simplified if you have chosen to include a user in the Service Notification Maintenance screen, which is under Payroll Setup menu. You can have multiple users listed if you would like, and then as tax updates become available throughout the year, an email will be sent to you with a link to download and install them. The downloads include all local taxes in the United States. If there is no user listed in Service Notification Maintenance, then as tax rates change and you log into a payroll task, you will then be prompted to download the new tax rates. RKL recommends that from this point in the year forward, that no tax updates be installed until after the last 2021 payroll has been processed. In order to manually create new line items for your 2022 unemployment rates, you'll go to Payroll, to the Setup menu, to Company Tax Group Maintenance, and there you'll create a new line item that will have an effective date of January 1st, 2022. And then you'll manually enter the correct rate for that year. Some considerations for payroll year end. For versions 2019 through 2021, the timing is important for the following. for your backup copy, it should be made after running your last 2021 payroll, but before running your W-2 forms. Make sure when making the backup that no one is in the system so that the general ledger, common information, and payroll information will copy over to your backup company code. The timing for downloading and installing the interim release downloads, IRDs. This will be available around December 23rd and should be installed after running the last 2021 payroll and before running your W-2 forms. And for installing the 2022 Quarter 1 tax update, this should be done after running your W-2 forms and after closing the last payroll quarter in the live company. The 2021 tax forms in the federal and state tax reporting program will be available in and around December 23rd as well. You will need to actually open the federal and state tax reporting task in order to be able to get those updates. Just a reminder about version 2019, it will be retired for this year. This is the last year that you will be able to run any tax forms in that version. The reason for this is because version 2022 will be released in the spring of next year, and Sage supports the current version and 2 previous versions. There's a link here that you can go to get some more information. There's also a link here where you can go and access many resources that are related to your Sage 100 end of year. If you click the end of year center link and you do not have a login for Sage City, you'll be prompted to create one. A little bit about the Affordable Care Act. So this section is to assist with understanding some of the new IRS rules so that your payroll can be set up properly, but please remember that it is not the official IRS guideline. Check with your accountant and visit the irs.gov website for further details on those guidelines. The Affordable Care Act, ACA, requires employers with more than 50 employees or that are self-insured to report employee health insurance information to the IRS. There's a chart on this screen that helps you to determine if you qualify for the ACA reporting. Basically, is if you offer health insurance and the plan is self-insured, there are different options listed for yes or no. If you do not offer health insurance to your employees, then if you have 50 or more employees, you may or may not be required to file the 1094C and 1095C forms, but you will not be required to file the 1094 and 1095B forms. In Sage 100, there are 2 tasks where you will need to set up and load the data before being able to process ACA reporting, and they are employer and employee maintenance. If you own or subscribe to Visual Integrator, which is a module on the menu that imports and exports data, then you can import the data from spreadsheets into the ACA files if you choose. You want to ensure that your employer ACA maintenance is accurate for each calendar year and that you have processed your fringe benefits for the year. And also, an employer contribution deduction should exist for reporting your ACA employer-sponsored health care on your W-2s. So you are considered a large employer if you or other companies in Sage 100 that are combined together for your organization employ an average of at least 50 full-time employees, including full-time equivalent employees, on business days during the calendar year. There are instructions to run the ACA applicable large employer report, which is on the Payroll ACA menu. And this will populate the employee and employer maintenance details. The ACA applicable large employer report, here's my mandatory disclosure, or disclaimer rather, it's offered as a self-help tool for your independent use. Sage cannot and does not guarantee the report's accuracy or applicability to your circumstances. To comply with the Affordable Care Act, hours of service must be reported by calendar month. Because hours worked are tracked by pay periods in Sage 100, and pay periods may span more than 1 month, a calculation is performed to get an approximate monthly total. The total is an estimate and may not reflect the actual hours worked. For specific tax or legal advice, see a professional tax service provider or an attorney. Under the ACA menu is ACA Employee Maintenance, where you gather information for the 1095-C form. The calendar year employee number, name, and address information are entered. And if you provided employer-sponsored self-insured coverage, you'll check that box, which will open the Covered Individuals area. In the monthly detail icon, you will see for each of the 12 months a pick list for your offer of coverage. And you'll fill that in for each year. There is a wheel icon that allows you to copy the first month down to all of the other months. Under Covered Individuals, which is also an icon on Employee Maintenance header, if you click the Provided Health Insurance box, you'll list each person covered by insurance in which months, and the person who you are currently in will auto-populate. Under the ACA Employer Maintenance task, you'll gather information for the 1094-C form. And then in the monthly detail, you'll indicate minimum essential coverage, full-time employee count, total count, and aggregated group. The deduction code that you'll create for the employer contribution is listed here, and it should be an employer contribution deduction type, and then the calculation method is fixed amount, and you'll put the standard amount rate in. This is not subject to taxes. For the payroll EEO-1 compliance, if you are paying 100 or more employees, Component 2 data is required. This includes the hours worked and pay information from the W-2 forms by ethnicity/race and gender. In order to comply with this, payroll versions 2.19.4 and higher include in employee maintenance the fields ethnicity/race, gender, and EEO job category. Listed on this page are some resources where you can get additional information. You can also reach out to RKL support at support@rklesolutions.com. Within Sage 100, on any screen, you can click the question mark icon, which will take you to the help on that topic. Your Sage City Year-End Center is available. And also, if you go to sageu.com, you can look up Sage 100 and then type in year-end and get a list of training sessions that are offered by Sage on year-end. We're going to wrap things up and then open the session up to questions and answers. If you need to reach out to your account executive for a Sage 100 version upgrade or for anything else, Lindsay Palladino is your customer advocate for the western part of the United States, and Michelle Ladano for the eastern. And their contact information is listed here. We would like to make you aware of the annual Sage Summit event, which is scheduled to be live in June from the 8th to the 10th in Dallas, Texas. And if you're interested in attending, there's a link on this slide. And at this point, we can open up the webinar for questions and answers.
If anybody has any questions, feel free to either pop them in the Q&A, or if you want to raise your hand, I think that I can unmute you if you'd like to ask. Oh, you do have something popping up in the question answer. Can you do W-2s after running your first payroll in 2022?
From your backup company only, not from your live company.
So with everybody have a great day, and feel free to reach out to us if you have any other further questions. Thanks.
Thank you.